Chapter 6207. Charlie called Steve over and tied him to his boat. Although this guy was not too kind, he was the second in command of the Rothschild family after all. So it would not be a bad thing to win over him appropriately. What's more, as long as he sits here today and drinks and chats with himself and Peter, then he will be completely pulled into the water. If the patriarch knows that his heir-to-be is drinking with Changjiang's son takes the Sifang Baojuan away from the Rothschild family. Now having dinner and drinks with Peter Zhu. Maybe he would kill this traitor with a gun. Although it will be difficult for him to become the heir of the Rothschild family for a while. His use value is still very high. Charlie asked Helena to manipulate his father. And then he personally manipulated him before going to the United States in the future. It's no different than going back to his own home. So, Charlie looked at Steve and smiled. You have this attitude, which is really impressive. After that, he picked up the wine glass and said with a smile. Come on, Steve, for the sake of the friendship between the three of us, let's have a drink. Steve took the risk, picked up the wine glass, and said cheerfully, Cheers to the friendship. The 53-degree strong wine was a bit overwhelming for Steve. And he couldn't help but feel cold after taking a sip. He sighed, oh, this wine is really spicy. Just like the vodka I drank at parties when I was young. It's a pity that my health doctor has long stopped recommending me to drink high-alcohol wine. Even red wine like Romani Conti has to be limited. It is said that it should not exceed 1 ounce per day. After that, he couldn't help but sigh. As I get older, my fighting ability is no longer good. And even drinking is a bit boring. In the past, we drank vodka with a higher concentration than this. Don't be afraid. It's no longer possible. All kinds of minor health problems and chronic diseases, the various precautions given by healthcare doctors are thicker than the Oxford Dictionary. Charlie looked at Steve and said with a smile. Well, it starts to decline at the age of 30. And everybody's function will continue to decline. It will inevitably have many problems by the age of 50. But as long as there are no fatal diseases, it is generally like a classic car. Although it has problems, it can still be driven. Steve looked at the wine glass and sighed absently. When a person reaches this stage, it will feel very hard. As you said, it gradually ages into a classic car with many problems. Even if there is no amount of money can change this reality. I actually have a lot of classic cars. Because I have the best team to maintain them, I can make them look the same as they did decades ago. But they are actually very fragile. The part of it can no longer be driven and can only be displayed statically. The part that can be driven can hardly support normal use. At this point, Steve paused slightly and then said, Actually, people are not as good as classic cars, sir. Cars can be replaced with spare parts at will. If you are willing to put in the effort, you can even reoperate the production line that has been dusted for decades and produce brand new replacement parts. But for people, you can't. I can afford the best house and bed, but no more. I can't get back the sleep I had when I was 20. I can get the best chefs from all over the world to cook me delicacies. But I can't get back the appetite I had when I was 20. My wine cellar is filled with the most delicious food in the world. Good wine, but my healthcare doctor told me to drink no more than 1 ounce a day. I asked someone to help me calculate it. If I could only drink 1 ounce a day, it would cost 6,800 to drink up all the wine I have in years. Seeing his sad face, Charlie asked him with a smile. So, you should understand some of your father's decisions now. Steve was slightly stunned and then said with a wry smile. Understand. If I could get back to the state I was in a few years ago, I would be willing to pay a lot of money and make a lot of sacrifices. Let's just say 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I could sleep every day for 8 hours. Do 5 miles of jogging and play music every night. Now, I sleep less than 6 hours a day. I have stopped running for 1.5 years, and it is becoming more and more boring. Steve sighed softly. With a loud voice, he continued. I am only in my 50s and I miss my youth very much. If I reach my father's age, I will probably value life and health even more. Charlie said with a smile, "You always think that I cheated you. But in fact, I indirectly helped you determine the position of the first heir. As far as I know, before this, the Rothschild family did not really make sure who the next heir was going to be." Steve sneered and said, "You are right. I am the first heir now, but my father has the elixir you provided. Maybe he will live longer than me."